Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well. Now today I've got a very special guest. I'm joined by the lovely Laura Kirk to talk a bit about Arsenal, the transfer news, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with her. Thank you so much, Laura, for coming on my channel. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Sophie, and thank you for having me. And how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I'm really glad to have you on because I know that we've sort of followed each other for a while and it's just really lovely to finally chat. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to doing this with you. And first of all, are you enjoying the break from Arsenal? How are you feeling with time away from it?
Yeah, it is. It is nice, isn't it, to try and just put everything into a bit of perspective. I think it becomes very all-consuming of your life, and that if Arsenal are
Yeah.
terrible, life is terrible. So it's been quite a nice time. It's felt quite a long time as well since I got home from the Liverpool game, and it's been quite nice to just have a break, enjoy watching some other football, rather than just constantly thinking about, oh God, Arsenal are playing next, what next? So it's been a nice break, definitely, and I think it has
Yeah.
helped bring a bit of positivity back.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like Arsenal haven't played in like months, and I feel like as fans we do need that time away because, like you
Mhm.
said, you can get quite consumed by it. It can affect how you feel as well because we've obviously we've been knocked out of the FA Cup and all wins in the league haven't been great. I think we won one out of our last seven, which hasn't been great, but. Before we do get into talking about Arsenal, I did want to start off. To those that might not know you, could you tell people a bit about your story on how you became an Arsenal fan and some of your memories growing up?
Yeah, of course. So I guess I became an Arsenal fan when I was maybe 11. And the reason for that is, if you remember the legendary Nigel Winterburn, who played for Arsenal, Nigel has some kids and they were at my school. And Joe was in my year. So his youngest son, Joe, was in my year at school. So from that, we kind of all became Arsenal fans. My older brother is a big Arsenal fan as well. He sits next to me at the Emirates. So that's kind of where it all started from. And then when I was about 20, 21, 22, I actually spent a year volunteering with Arsenal. So, I think everyone knows some of the great work that the club do in the community. They have amazing kind of outreach programs. So I spent a year on their GAP program, where they train you as a coach and you go and you represent Arsenal in the local community. You take football sessions, and then they send you abroad as well. So I actually spent 3 months in Ghana, coaching football on behalf of the Arsenal in the community. So they have a very big place in my life. Being part of this community is such a source of joy for me, and it was nice just to be able to see kind of how powerful it is to go into any school or any kind of organization wearing an Arsenal badge, because it just gives you this incredible sense of pride. The kids absolutely love it, whether they're Arsenal fans or not, and quite a few of them weren't. And so just to be a bit of sort of part of the club for a short time was absolutely amazing, and memories for life as well.
Oh wow, that's incredible. I absolutely love that story. I didn't expect that. It was really cool listening to that.
Yeah, there's
And
a big picture of me on the Arsenal website, I think, somewhere. I'll have to send it to you, Soph, of me in
yeah, you have
Ghana.
to send me. Oh, I love that. That must be so special and such
Mhm.
like a surreal thing to get given. And I absolutely love that. And to those that don't know Laura, it's really good for you guys to get to know her as well. But for you growing up, what were some of your favourite Arsenal players?
So I am, and I know this can be controversial, but Cesc Fabregas will always be my favourite Arsenal player. In my kitchen, which is just over there, I've got a massive picture of him on the wall that I was given when I was 15 years old, and it's a black and white kind of canvas print, and I still, I've carried that with me to every house that I've moved to, and he was so exciting, he was so clever, and he made things look effortless. So he will always be my kind of Arsenal player that I will defend until,
Yeah,
because obviously he did go to Chelsea, and we don't need to
yeah.
necessarily dwell on that. But I think he loved Arsenal. I still think he loves Arsenal still. So for me, he's my kind of like, he was my Arsenal hero.
Oh, I love that. I know it's a bit of a difficult one with Fabregas because there's quite a few fans. I personally like him. I do. I agree
Mm,
with you. I think he loves Arsenal, but I do think he loves Chelsea too. But I still think people think he doesn't love us because he left. But yeah, I think Fabregas, wow, what a great player he was. Only if he could come back in this team now, that'd be
I know,
brilliant.
and people always say, we should have got him back, but he went on to achieve really good things at Chelsea, which breaks my heart. But
Yeah, not
ultimately,
nice.
he wasn't the right player. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's always hard, really, when we let players go and they go on to other teams and achieve things. It is quite hard to watch, but like you said, he did do a lot for us, and I do think for me, he was a fantastic player, and I absolutely love that from you. But now people have gotten to know a bit about you, I just wanted to kind of touch on your thoughts so far on the season, because we were going through a bit of a rough patch, which does happen in football. We've obviously got a few more signings as well. And we are playing Crystal Palace next weekend, I think. So for you, how are you just feeling about the season so far?
I think, to be honest, Sophie, if you'd asked me this before, straight after the Liverpool game, like when you had Dan on, I probably would have been the same as you guys discussing then, that how depressing it felt.
Yeah.
I think a week and a bit later, we are not far off top. I know, we have been top and now we've sort of slid down the table a little bit. But I think if you'd have said to us at the beginning of the season, right, you're going to be 5 points off Liverpool, I think. 5 points off Liverpool, who are top. We have played some of our difficult games. We've been to Chelsea, although we only got a point there. I think on balance, the position in the table is absolutely fine. And I think there's been a lot of panic about the fact that we're not top anymore. And I just think everyone needs to calm down. The way that the Premier League is now, we are moving up and down constantly. There are so many more good teams that, it's less of a concern to me where we are. The concern is how the game's played out in the past couple of weeks. And what that says about the group of players that we've got, and what that says about how they cope with not playing well, whether they can play themselves out of it. That's the bit I'm concerned about. And also whether we are going to do anything in the market in January. I don't think we are, to sort of reinforce that. So on balance, I think we've done our little collective meltdown about the festive period. It wasn't good, but there is still lots to play for. And I think everyone still needs to remember that this, as we have seen, we thought we'd won the title last year. I certainly did. I was making plans for trophy parades. Anything can happen, and I think we all just need to remember that.
Yeah, like you said, with the league, like at Christmas, we were at the top, and then things do change quickly. And no Man City as well, with De Bruyne coming back, they've got that other confidence boost. And Liverpool this season have done a lot better. I did say this season it would be harder to win the league, because last season it was only us and Man City going out for it. But I do think there is the expectation to kind of challenge again, and we should really be doing that. And I kind of think we are. 5 points right now kind of might seem a lot, but it really isn't, because if Liverpool drop a few points and Man City do, I think we can just overtake. But I think it is hard, like you said, with the January transfer window, because I'm not really feeling confident we're going to make many signings. I think regarding the money situation as well makes it more difficult, and we know the striker is definitely a position we should strengthen in. But for you, do you think we would bring anyone in, or are you just feeling like we're just going to have the squad we have now?
I mean, I don't think we're going to get the marquee signing that I think people are sort of clamouring for. I don't see Ivan Toney coming to Arsenal this transfer window. He's too much money. I also question whether he, if you're bringing in a striker in January, it is notoriously quite difficult to get them integrated into the side quite quickly. And what we need is someone who is literally going to score lots instantly. Now, Ivan Toney's been out for a long time, and I don't care if he's been training on the pitch and, given it his all in training, he is going to be rusty. And I question whether that is the right type of, player to bring in at this stage. The things that worry me, though, are, I think we've got, I think Dan said it on your previous video, Sophie, we've actually got maybe 3 or 4 areas we need to address. And I think we are but a couple of injuries away from a pretty weak looking squad. So if anything happens to Saliba or Gabriel, I'm like, right, so
yeah, big trouble.
yeah, we're in trouble, right? Like we're gonna have to have a sort of makeshift back four, maybe stick Ben White in there. That is not gonna fly against. We've still got to go to the Etihad, etc. We've still got Liverpool at home, all of whom have players that can really that we don't want some sort of makeshift back four against. And I think we have started to kind of leak goals, which was less of a problem last year. But then we're also like, we've not replaced Xhaka. We've got the ongoing problems with Partey, and we're also not scoring goals. So we probably need a midfielder. We probably need a winger to, give a bit of backup to Saka and Martinelli. So if I'm Arteta and the team, I'm probably scratching my head as to we need so many players to be able to compete with these other squads. We're not going to get those players in January. That doesn't mean that the league is gone. It just means that we are going to have to be much cleverer with how we use these players and how we play, because we're not going to get like Tony. So I don't know what you think, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I feel like it's more of like a dream to get him, because I think for me, he's only came back. I know he did play in like an under 21 game to get his fitness back up, and he did obviously get a hat trick. But I feel as though, like he was saying, I think he did an interview to say that he owes Brentford a lot. So I reckon he'll stay there for another season. I don't think it's likely. I think it's more likely that we could get him in the summer, but we do really need one, a striker. And like you said, it's really difficult, because I think if we got a striker, I don't think it solves all of our problems, because like you said, defensively, if Saliba, like we saw last season when he got injured, that really affected us going for the league. And same with Gabriel, and we've seen that with Timber as well, how much like he would really help this team. And injuries do happen, and it's really affecting us. And I know Partey should be back soon, but it is really hard, because in that game against Liverpool, we were doing really well. We were doing everything right, but we just couldn't score. And it is hard, because it's not just on the striker, because Saka was struggling to score, Martinelli, and it doesn't make sense. I don't know if the team are going through like a confidence issue, or they just can't score, because it's really frustrating right now. For you, why do you feel like the team is struggling to score? Do you think it's to do with the striker situation, or do you just think overall we're just struggling with it?
To be honest, I think there's a number of reasons. I think ultimately we have teams have seen how we play now, and this season versus last season they have come to expect an attacking side, and the way that they set up, we are regularly facing a really deep block, which we have really struggled to break down. And what we're not good at is the number of times we just try the same thing over and over again, and you can see the hesitation on the edge of the box, that they're waiting to kind of either send it wide or slot it through. There is then the kind of impatience. So there's often a kind of collective groan, because people are like, that was never on. Why did you even try it? So there's the kind of, we've not been able to adapt where teams have now adapted to face us.
Yeah.
And then I think the players who we have come to expect goals from are all at the same time seemingly dropping out of form. Gabriel Jesus, when he first came to Arsenal, I have to be honest, the first time I saw him live, I was like, wow, this is a player. This is a player, this is a kind of, I've not seen a standard like this for ages, perhaps since like Alexis came to Arsenal. Yeah. He just looked so explosive, so quick. That's dropped off. I think, Martinelli, Saka are probably exhausted because they have both played. And I also think we've seen, Trossard not being as effective as he was previously. We've played him in all sorts of positions as well. I'm like, I actually don't really know where he is, he sits happily and where he's most effective. So there's a kind of combination of teams working us out. We're probably low on confidence, and all our players have kind of collectively slipped into this sort of malaise of all playing, not badly, but less, less than what we'd expect from them at the same time. And I think also what that comes down to as well is, you have to remember, Arteta is in his third or fourth season of ever being a manager. He is not as experienced as Klopp or Guardiola, who might be able to look at the situation we have and go, right, these are the things that we need to change. This is the personnel we need to change. And I know, Sophie, you made a really good point in a previous video about Arteta making some mistakes recently, and those are sort of starting to creep in. And he doesn't have the kind of, experience to be able to be completely confident that bringing people off the bench are going to do what he needs them to do. I think some of our squad coming off the bench, you're just like, this isn't going to make any difference. I know there's been some exceptions to that rule. The Kai Havertz goal at Brentford, stroke of genius. But I think too often we have, brought players on who have done absolutely nothing. Nothing has changed. And you're like, what was the point of that? What were you trying to do? So I think we're just in that kind of situation where there's a few things working against us. However, I will say, and I don't know whether I'm deluded in thinking this, I just think one good performance, like if we can put in a really good showing against Crystal Palace next week, we will be back in the running. And all it takes is 2 or 3 goals, games, whatever, just to get back.
Yeah, I think we need that for confidence. I think once we've put the ball in the back of the net, I think that'll be us going again. I just think we just can't score, and it is quite frustrating. But yeah, I think right now with the window, I think we do really need a few signings, but I know that it's kind of really hard to be realistic about that because I don't really expect us to make any, outstanding signings. I think with our team we have now, I think it has been hard because of the injuries we faced. I know a few players probably aren't as good as they were last season. Like for me, like with Zinchenko, I think he's great to watch, and going forward in our attack he's so important. But I think defensively he just started to struggle a bit, and people question Saka as well. And I feel like if we had more options on the bench, like if we could give Saka a few games or a game of rest, he would be much fitter and much more up for it. But I think because he plays so much, I think Saka does want to play every game, but I do think that the players aren't getting that rest that they need. And it is obviously difficult right now. I think that Crystal Palace game, I can't imagine if we lose that. I think.
Oh, don't. Or even if we don't, come away with a draw, or if we see the same thing that we've seen in these previous games where we're just completely on top and then they score with their first shot on target, which I know has happened previously. Like, it's, we cannot have that again. And I hope whatever they're doing in Dubai is, in support of, more creative attacking and just better finishing.
Yeah, I think the team really needed that rest because it has been quite hectic with the schedule. And now with the Champions League, we've actually done pretty good in, but I think with the league, we've just come to a point where we're sort of stuck and we can't. Like Arteta did change things in the FA Cup game, which I liked, and I think with Ramsdale as well, it was really good to see him play because we've not really seen him get many minutes. But yeah, I think that game at Crystal Palace for me, we have to win it. Like I just can't think about any other result because it is, it's an important game for us after the break we've had. And I think as fans, as players, we've really needed it all to kind of refocus again. But I did want to talk to you a bit about, the players you brought in the summer. I thought we could rate them so far, what you thought of them. Obviously, with Timber, we probably can't rate him because he's not really played much. I know he did play the Community Shield game, which I thought he was outstanding. But it's hard because I thought he would be one of our best players this season, and that injury is just so unfortunate, isn't it?
Yeah, he looked really good, and I can't say I knew much of the player beforehand. But certainly the way that he is spoken about and the way that he performed in that Community Shield, it is a bit of a sucker punch to lose him so early and to such a long-term injury. It's good to see him that he is back training, but with an injury like that, you can't rush it because it needs to be back to full strength. If you look at how many of the women have been out for Beth Mead out for over a year, that kind of thing. So it's not something that we can afford to kind of rush him back. So it's a good one for the future. But yeah, it's absolutely gutting how we've lost him this season.
Yeah, definitely. I thought he would really be up there for one of our best players, but I think he is set to come back in March, so it'll be really good to see him. But I wanted to start off with Raya because for me, when we bought him, I didn't actually think he was going to start over Ramsdale full time. I thought he would probably challenge Ramsdale a bit, play in quite a few more games because I know Matt Turner, we knew he was our second choice. Like there was no, you could see Ramsdale was probably better than him, much better. But I think, Arteta's wanted to change things with Ramsdale because I think last season, I see with Ramsdale, he's quite a risky player. He likes to take risks, and sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it can fall back on you, and it's not a good thing. But for you, what would you rate Raya so far, and what have you made of him?
Oh, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
of all the positions, I wouldn't have said at the end of the season, right, we need to go and get a better goalie. Like I don't really get it. And I know
yeah,
if you look at the stats comparing the two, Raya is I think on paper, better keeper. And I completely agree with what you're saying. So Ramsdale made me a bit nervous. I think he has a tendency to come for crosses where he should be staying, or he's kind of like a little bit indecisive. And I think there's been a few times where, a little bit like this season, we have been very much on top, and then a team has had one counter attack, one sort of like 50-50 chance, and he's failed to stop it. Raya, I think I find it really difficult, because I think this
me
is a
too.
situation we have manufactured this problem for ourselves that wasn't there. I don't see how you can look at Ramsdale at the end of last season and go, he's not good enough. And I don't see how you can look at Raya and go, he is so much better than Ramsdale that he immediately gets the number one jersey. Like that to me is
Yeah,
insane.
I
Um,
agree.
and now we've got a big problem, because I don't think Raya has been so much better than Ramsdale that the question's gone away. You know, it would be completely fine for him to have come in, have been really, really good. And I'm talking, Allison levels of good.
Yeah,
And then you go, yeah, okay, fair enough. But he hasn't. I can't say how, maybe in his distribution, and he is better with his feet. He gives us a bit more confidence, but it has now kind of made a problem for us, which we can't solve easily, because it
yeah,
will ultimately result in us losing Ramsdale. If I'm Ramsdale, I'm thinking, I'm not being number 2 here. I'll go and play for Newcastle and
yeah,
be number 1.
yeah. I don't blame him. It is hard, really. I think with Raya, I don't know if this is harsh, but I think for me, with Ramsdale, he's wowed me quite a few times. Like, he's made
Mm-hmm.
some saves that I thought, wow, like
Mm.
I did kind of see him as like a David Seaman type of player. I know that he's obviously got a lot more to win and stuff, but I kind of put him on that level. But I think for me, I'd probably give Raya. I think so far I'd give him a 5, because he's done quite good a lot of things, but then I personally just don't know if he's better than Ramsdale. I don't feel like he is. I think he's a good goalkeeper,
Mm.
and he does have qualities that Ramsdale doesn't have. And I think from the back, Ramsdale did always make me nervous. But I know in a Liverpool game, it reminded me of the old Ramsdale that we kind of knew and loved. And he's obviously got that confidence back. But yeah, the goalkeeper situation's so difficult.
It's a mess, and I agree with your rating. I think 5. You're a harsh taskmaster, so if I probably give him a 5 or a 6, purely on account of the fact that I don't think he was given an opportunity here to
Yeah.
basically cement his position as number 1. I don't think he's done that at all. You cannot argue that he is so much better than Ramsdale that this
Mhm.
situation is warranted, basically. So yeah, 5 or 6.
Yeah, and I really do hope that he does, not prove me wrong, but I do like Raya. I just feel
Mm.
like if I had the choice, I'd probably pick Ramsdale. But I do really hope that Raya will end up having an amazing season. And I know the goals we've conceded aren't all on him, but I think we do kind of concede a lot. So it is a bit worrying. But I think it's a difficult one for Raya, because he's came in, done his job, and a lot of us, have this, we just love Ramsdale, so it's kind of
Mm.
difficult for him coming in at this time. Um, but I do think it's kind of worrying how many goalkeepers we've gone through, because we've had, Martinez, Leno, and for me, Ramsdale's probably been my favourite out of them all. But yeah, I just feel like we need to get a goalkeeper and stick with them. But there are questions if Ramsdale could win us a league title. I don't think it was his fault that we didn't win it last season, personally. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, do you think you do think it is his fault? It wasn't.
No, I don't.
No. You can't. No, I mean, you can't blame him for conceding goals against City. We got
Yeah.
completely outplayed by City. They were, unfortunately, when push came to shove, a better team than us, and we did not take our opportunities. I think the one thing that always sticks in my mind is the 2 occasions where we conceded within the first 10 seconds, which is just insane to me. And both of those, yeah, probably were Ramsdale's fault, but ultimately you're then leaving yourselves 95 minutes to win that game. So it's not, you can't point to him and say he is the source of this. Basically, I think if you really wanted to kind of pinpoint something, it was probably the Saliba injury, amongst other things. But Ramsdale, he can hold his head high for last season, and I will always think about him giving it to the Spurs fans when we won there, and he will always have a really good place in my heart, basically.
Yeah, I think for me, like with Ramsdale, I definitely think the good outweighs the bad. Like when I think of him, I just think of all the good he's done for us, because players have a few mistakes in them, but I do kind of hope Ramsdale can come back. But it will be interesting to see what happens there. Now, this one is quite a controversial one. Now, Havertz, it's a difficult one. Whenever you mention him, some fans, do see that he's getting better, and other fans just think he's been a waste of money, basically. Yeah. How do you feel on Havertz for you, like, so far?
I think, I mean, first and foremost, it doesn't have to be that black and white. I think we can say there are good things about him, and I think he played really well in the Liverpool game, even though he didn't score.
Yeah.
However, the fee which we paid to him has, I think, not really returned in terms of the investment that we've made. I think there were other players who have had more impact on other teams. I think it was Dan who mentioned James Maddison going to Spurs.
Yeah.
Obviously he's out at the moment, I think, for he's injured, but that's a phenomenal signing. I absolutely hate it. It's a brilliant, it was 40 million, I think, but I absolutely hate it. It makes me so jealous. Havertz hasn't had the same impact as Maddison has at Spurs. I don't know where we are meant to be playing him, but I don't think we are giving him, we're not really helping him by constantly moving him around and moving who he is playing with and moving what system we are playing. Randomly sticking him up top against Liverpool with Reece Nelson on one side and then being like, oh, he's not scored a goal. Like, we're not creating an environment for him to be successful in. But equally, I think he has spurned a few chances where we would expect someone, who has won a Champions League, that we paid that much money for, to be a bit more prolific. Now, if I'm honest, I don't remember him hugely at Chelsea, and I think that probably says quite a lot about the player itself. But I think he will come good. I'm kind of wishing it into existence, I think, because I don't like the idea that we've signed a flop. But for a side that is wanting to challenge for titles, we don't have time to wait for him to come good. We don't have time, and we don't have the money to be sitting there on a player who is going to take 2-3 seasons to come to fruition. The only exception to that being is if we, bring in a different midfielder or someone to kind of give Saka a rest, that could give something a little bit different to Havertz. But I see lots of tweets all the time that are like, if you don't think Havertz is good, like, you don't know football. And I'm quite happy to be like, I don't know football then, because I don't know what you're looking at that I'm not. I don't really care about how many duels he's won. I want him to score goals, because I feel like that's what we bought him for. And I don't care if he's winning aerial duels. Okay, fair enough. But he's 6'4", so fine. He needs to offer more, basically.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think he did have a slow start, and then he's kind of got into it. I think at the moment, I would say things are looking positive for him. He's really started to kind of, score more goals. I know that when the team gave him that penalty, I thought after that he would score more, and he didn't end up doing that. But he did come to a point where things just clicked for him, and I feel like we're at that moment now. So it is kind of hard to judge him now, because I think when the season's gone, you can really judge that. And I think a lot of people question it, because that 65 million is a lot of money. Could it have been spent on a few different areas? But I think for me it's a bit difficult, because, like, I'm with you. I think we just want goals, we want assists from him, and it has taken a bit of time to kind of get into it. But yeah, it's a bit difficult for me. I think he's doing a lot better than what some people might say. I think for me, I'd probably give him maybe a 5 or 6, because I just really like him. But there's games where, like the Liverpool one, like I said, he actually did well with his build-up play, everything else, but he just couldn't score. Like,
yeah, it's sort of. it's the kind of like shoulda, like if you had just scored a goal, then yeah, we'd be looking at maybe 7, 8 out of 10, because ultimately he scored that goal at Brentford. I think he scored against Brighton as well when it was
Yeah.
1-0, and we were looking, you know, it was still tight, which is an important goal. But yeah, it's so close to being really good, but also so far.
Yeah, I get what you mean, because like there's moments like I think for me in FA Cup games, in the Champions League games, if he scores like to get us through to a different round, I feel like you can really, you know, give him more
Mhm.
credit and praise for that. And I think that's what we need from him, because it has been a lot of money. And like you said before, with Havertz, it's sort of for me like a project, because at Chelsea, I know he did score in the final at the Champions League, which is great. But other than that, he did miss a lot of chances. Well, that's what I know him of when we signed him,
Yeah.
which isn't great, and it's not a nice way to be. But I feel like Arteta wants to make him a good player, but we kind of need players who are already like at that level. But yeah, I think he will be a good signing, but I just don't think he was the signing we needed at this moment in time. What do you think about it, really?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. When we were first sort of linked with him, I was like, but why? Where
Mm,
is what? That's not addressing a problem that I think we have, because you know he's not replacing Xhaka. He's not really replacing Partey. He's not really a striker. I don't even know where he
yeah.
first played. So it felt like a bit of probably a very good squad player, but not for 65 million. Basically, that's
Yeah,
far
it's a
too
lot
much
of
money.
money, that, isn't it? Like for
Yeah,
him. Yeah, I was surprised. Like when we were linked to him, I was a bit like, like why? Like,
yeah.
what is
Why?
he? How
Why?
is he going to change this team? Because
Mm,
we've not, like, obviously with Aubameyang and Lacazette leaving, we know that's probably the right thing. But we've obviously brought Jesus in, but we've not really brought anyone else in to kind of replace them. I know Nketiah has always been Arsenal for as long as I can remember, but I think we've not really replaced players. Is that another thing that we should be doing? But yeah, I think with Havertz, I think we've really got to just see how it goes,
mhm.
because a lot of people did doubt him at the start, and I think he might have scored about 4 goals. I know he scored a few in the Champions League, but I think for me, for a player that we've paid for, like him, I think we need 10 to 15 in the league,
Mhm.
especially. So I think it's quite hard to judge right now, but let's hope, it gets a bit better for him.
Yeah,
Now,
definitely.
talking on Declan Rice, I think we all smile when we hear his name, because I think I love him. Like, it still hasn't sunk in that he's an Arsenal player. Um, just talk to me a bit about what you've made of him so far.
I'm exactly the same as you. And one thing my brother says to me all the time when we're watching the games is, I still can't believe that Declan Rice is an Arsenal player. Like he's right there in front of us. Like he's in an Arsenal kit. Um, I've seen some like spatterings of kind of criticism over the past couple of games. I'm not interested in it. He has been our best player. He has made a
Yeah,
huge difference to our side. And I think for me, what he brings is like, I just feel comfortable with him on the pitch, because he's very, very intelligent, and he is excellent at reading the game, and the number of tackles and he has this just phenomenal ability to tackle and take the ball cleanly that I've just never seen. I mean, Partey is also strong in that, but he never plays, so easily forgotten. But it is the control he gives to us. It is the link between the back four and the kind of rest of the team, and his just ability to anticipate where the opposition is about to play the pass. And you kind of run out of superlatives, really. I mean, I know he's scored twice for us, which maybe is not quite what we wanted, maybe more.
yeah,
But both those goals were absolutely pivotal. The goal against Man United, and then the kind of winner against Luton. That is what you pay £100 million for.
yeah,
That's what £100 million player should look like. And we've just kind of been a bit normalised to Chelsea spending 100 million on literally whoever, but £100 million signing should be, you know, giving you points when you were not about to get points. We were 2-1 down at Liverpool at one point. We almost lost to Man United, apart from obviously thanks to VAR. But he
yeah.
is, he has basically won us single-handedly 6 points there, and that's what you pay for. And I just, yeah, 10 out of 10, no notes, crack on, Declan, happy birthday.
Oh, yeah, happy birthday, by the way. Yeah, honestly, like, I think at the time when we signed him for that amount of money, I was thinking like that is a lot. But when you've seen what he's done, I feel like we've sort of underpaid in a way because
Mm,
he's been absolutely phenomenal. And I remember the Chelsea game, we were losing at 2-0, and when he scored that goal, the way I just feel like he's a fantastic player. He scores the goals at the right time. I've
mm.
noticed that when we're really struggling, he then scores the goals, like you said with the United game. So yeah, I think it's been excellent. I think we're a different side when he's playing. I think him,
Yeah.
Gabriel,
What do you
Saliba.
think, Sophie, about? I know lots of people have kind of had him down as maybe future captain. Like, I think it's probably a bit soon, but he certainly, I don't know, I guess I think he
Yeah,
looks like that kind of player.
yeah, definitely. I think he's definitely captain material. I think, especially with his performances, and to me, he just seems like a great leader on the pitch, even though
Mm,
he's only been here not long. Like, it feels like I know Odegaard's our captain at the moment, and I've said I think Odegaard's a good captain because he's quite calm, and he does his talking on the pitch by scoring goals and helping us, win the games. But I know Odegaard this season probably it has been good, but not being as good as we probably usually is. But yeah, I think it's hard to tell at this moment in time. But I've watched Declan Rice at England, for years, and he's been a player that I didn't actually think as a cap. I didn't see him as a captain, but
mm.
now he's at Arsenal. I kind of see him as a captain now.
Yeah, definitely. He's one of those players that kind of just keeps leveling up, with no disrespect to West Ham, and they're having a really good season. But, to go from being the best player at West Ham to then the best player at Arsenal, that is a thing that's done only by the best players who keep basically lifting their level up and up and up. And I think that's part of the reason he is so brilliant, is that he came with a huge price tag, a huge expectation, and has absolutely delivered on it, which cannot be said for so many signings that are made across the leagues. Madrid, Caicedo, all of those ones as well. 100 million for Rice is a bargain.
Yeah, it's really funny because at the time, you do think it's a lot of money, and there was that question: would you go to Man City? Would you come to Arsenal?
Mm,
And I was just really hoping he would come to us. And now he's here. I just, like you said before, it just doesn't feel real, does it? Because he's such a like. I just think he's so incredible. I've always loved
mm.
watching him, but I always thought he would go to like a Chelsea or a Man United. Actually, so it's so lovely having him, isn't it?
It
Like I'm
makes me
just
feel, yeah, it makes me feel actually physically unwell thinking about him at Man City. Like the idea that, they unveiled him in a blue shirt, I'm like, oh, I can't actually, my brain won't do it, because, they would have been just so good. I mean, they're so good already. They don't necessarily need him, but the fact that he chose the sort of Arteta project over what he could have joined at City, I think says a lot about what he sees in this club.
Yeah, it's quite interesting that because I think the thing is with him coming to Arsenal, he probably knows he won't be on the bench, and I think with Man
Mhm.
City, there are a lot of players that probably thought they would have gotten more game time. So I think that's the hard thing with Man City that they don't really. He'd probably be on
Mm,
the bench, and he'd probably, you know, not be the best player anymore. So I think with Arsenal, he probably knew that he would get the right game time and Arteta is building something. But if you think about it, it's quite crazy to think he's picked Arteta over Pep. If you
mm.
think about it like that.
Yeah, and I don't know whether, as a player, there is a different mentality between joining a basically perfect product, which Man City is. They're coming off the back of winning the treble. How that kind of feels joining a squad that's already been and done it versus a squad that is absolutely desperate for success because we've not seen it recently. And I think it says a lot about what he wants to achieve and how he wants to go about that. That he probably could have joined Man City for more money, sat on the bench, and probably enjoyed a Premier League or two. But you're right. I don't know how much game time he would get, unless
Mhm.
he's kind of like in Pep's sort of next phase of rebuilding Man City. But I think it just speaks a lot about, he knows that Arsenal are desperate for success. The fans have a huge expectation. It's one of those clubs that just expects big things. So to come with that huge price tag and expectation, I think is, yeah, it's you kind of run out of words for how good it is.
Yeah, like it's just amazing to have him, and I think it's good that he obviously came to Arsenal because I think he's really elevated this team, like especially with Partey being absent. I think he's really had to step in and really perform. I think there was a lot of expectations on him. I think with the price tag as well, because say it didn't work out at Arsenal, it feels like that would be a lot of money kind of wasted. But I think we kind of knew it would go well because we've seen Declan Rice in the Premier League for years, especially when he played against us for England. We knew what to expect from him, and I suppose with other signings like a Kai Havertz, like a project one, it's more of like one that will come good in time, but we kind of knew that with Declan Rice, he was going to be, we would change this team, and I really think he has changed the team because even like when he's not playing, you really do see how different we are. Like he levels up this team. I think he's probably one of our best players, and like you said, a future captain. Because I never really saw him like that. Because at West Ham, he was that player that stood out for me. I know they had a few other good players, but for me, like you said, he's been their best player and probably one of our best players. So yeah, I just think he's really doing his job, and I think a lot of people have been a bit harsh on him in the last few games because I think a lot of players are struggling. Like, I wouldn't just say it's one individual player. I think, like, collectively as a team, I think we are struggling, but I do think our performances are starting to pick up. But I think when we've got that goal, I think we'll be much better. But I do love it whenever Declan Rice scores because it's always a banger. It's always a good goal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really do hope things can pick up. And we know that with Arteta, especially online, he does get a fair share of criticism, especially when we're losing. And I know in Dubai, because he's out there chilling, eating the food. Did you see that video of him being fed? Was it steak or something?
Yeah, Salt Bay. There was so much nonsense online about that. Like, the man can do what he wants, but it's just the restaurant that he chose is like, it's just overpriced food for influencers. And I was like, oh, Mikkel, like, there are so many good restaurants in Dubai. Like, why did you have to go there? But I hope he's
know.
having a good break,
It is hard because I know people that don't like him will use that against him. But
Yeah.
I just wanted to get your thoughts on, like, I know overall he has done a good job. We've won an FA Cup, and from where we were sat in 8th to challenging last season, no one really expected us to do that. But what have you just made of him so far in this season as well?
I mean, he this will be his fourth season, I think, with Arsenal.
Yeah, I think so.
So I think that is more than enough time to, develop a kind of identity and how he, sets up his team, how he wants us to play. And I think that is very clear to me now. Maybe it wasn't at the beginning because obviously he's a brand new coach and his first managerial post, obviously he's come from City, so that is likely to be a strong influence. But for me, it's really clear to see what we're trying to do, which I think is encouraging. We want to play attacking kind of football using the width of the pitch. We're probably overthinking it a little bit at the moment, but we have scored some really, really intricate, excellently worked goals. The team are just not doing it at the moment. And I think a lot of that comes onto the players, not Arteta. I don't really know how you can look at how well we have dominated games over the past, during the festive period and go, that's the manager's fault. So in that sense, I think he is going in the right direction. Arsenal have a clear identity. Where I think his inexperience is being shown is, back end of last year, obviously we lost Saliba, which is not on Arteta, but he probably didn't need to play. So I think where he is not experience is in how to rotate his squad, how to get the best out of the players. There's no reason why, if Saka is tired, he can't sit out for 70 minutes and then come on as a super sub against a tired, fullback, basically. So, there's no reason for that. But I think he's perhaps just lacking in the confidence to make those types of decisions. The idea that, you would bench one of our best players in Saka, but ultimately being an experienced coach is recognizing when that player is burnt out and would actually benefit from a little bit of a time on the sideline to watch the game and then come on and be impactful.
Yeah.
And I think it has been the case for a while, but while we have made some good signings and we've made some really smart signings, we've still got a lot of dead weight in this squad. And what I would want to see is Arteta being a bit more ruthless with, getting rid of Cedric, perhaps selling Nketiah. And again, I think that comes with experience of knowing that you are able to bring in replacements. And I think, getting Declan Rice should give the scouting team and Arteta the confidence that we will be able to sign big players. But we also need to, on the flip side of that, get rid of the players that are not even really good enough to be squad players. Like, I don't know what Cedric is doing Arsenal anymore. El Neni obviously is still there. Vieira as well. I'm a bit, I haven't seen enough of him. And I think as a coach, it is only with experience you kind of learn to play those transfer windows really brilliantly. But the idea that, after 3 or 4 bad games, we should be questioning whether he is right for Arsenal is insane to me. It reeks of a lack of patience, a lack of understanding of kind of what is actually going wrong on the pitch. I don't think you can look at any of those games and go, we set up wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like for me, a lot of blame is going on to him, which I think for me, I think it's quite early to kind of judge Arteta like this season, because for a start, we do go through rough patches. Like, I know a lot of managers do go through that. I know Klopp has gone through that. I think the difference is because he's not won us like a lot of stuff, it's probably hard for people to get behind him. But I think with you, like, I agree with some of his mistakes, but I think he has done a lot of good for us, and I think the players, are to blame as well, because they're the ones on the pitch missing the chances. I think with Saka, I think Arteta does need to recognise when he's burnt out, because, like you said, we do have a lot of players that are capable of scoring other than Saka. We've got Martinelli, we've got Trossard. I know Eddie, for me, he doesn't play much, and I think he does struggle to help us with the goals, but we do have other players that can provide for the team, and I feel like if the players burn out, by playing them more will only make them feel worse. So I feel like you said, if you bring Saka on, and at the 70th minute, it will make him feel more refreshed, more energetic, because you'll have that rest. And I think, Reece Nelson, for me, I know he's probably not on Saka's level, but I think he's still a fantastic player, and he brings us that energy that we need. And in that Liverpool game, he definitely brought us something that we needed. And yeah, I think for me with Arteta, I think this season it would be good if we could still challenge with Man City and Liverpool. Um, I still think we are up there. I know 5 points for me isn't actually that much. I think if we were like 10 or 15, I'd probably say we're not really up there. But I think because we've still got a big chunk of the season to go, I think you can't really write who's going to win it. Like, I think at the start I was thinking us and then Liverpool, but I think for me, I don't really know right now. I think we've just got to take game by game. And no, last season, I did really think we were going to win it, and I was surprised that we didn't. And I think these injuries, like Saliba, these injuries can happen anytime, and that's what worries me about the rest of the season, because I think defensively as well, it's always good to have a few backup players. I know that we've obviously got Kivior in, which I think is a good player, but I think he probably might struggle in those games for the title. But yeah, I think with the squad we have now, I think if Partey's back, I think we just really need to buy a striker, but I just don't see it happening because of the money situation. And like you mentioned, we do have a lot of players that we really should get rid of, because if we're struggling to make money, we could sell them. I know they probably won't get us an awful lot of money, but if we use that for a player, I think it would be great. But yeah, I think for me, you've got to really reserve your judgment to the end of the season, because I think whenever we lose one game, you do see the Arteta outs on Twitter, and I think it's not all. I think it's easy to blame a manager when things aren't going right. You've got to give the players a bit of blame too, because they're on the pitch, aren't they? Really?
Yeah, exactly. And Arteta ultimately is not the one who is, if I'm Kai Havertz during the Liverpool game, that header that he sort of just nicked wide, he's in the right place. The ball is good. I really don't know how you go, right, that's Arteta's fault. Like, that just seems such an easy excuse. You absolutely can blame him if, we are set up in a way that is not appropriate for the type of team we're playing. If we're playing like a really high line and Man City are getting in behind us, fine. That's to be expected. But the players are just they're not doing their jobs at the moment, and it is up to Arteta to work out why, to run training effectively to address that. But ultimately, he is not the one on the pitch hitting the bar when we should be, when it should be the back of the net.
Yeah, exactly. And like we've said, these players for me are good enough to take the chances that we've had, because I know when we've missed our chances in our last few games, people automatically say bring a striker in, which we should. But I do also believe the players we have on the pitch are good enough to score them chances. Like, if you look at Odegaard as well, I think he should be shooting a lot more. I just think overall as a team, we just seem to be struggling. I think defensively we're okay. I think Saliba and Gabriel are great together. I think obviously the left back situation would be another one that ideally would be good. I know with Tierney on loan, I don't think he wants to come back. He probably wants to stay there, and I get that. I think he's happy there and he's learning and getting that regular game time, but it's really hard because if one of our players gets injured, like if a Declan Rice gets injured, we're kind of back to square one, and we're in big trouble, really.
Yeah, I think if you look at our, first 11, I would be very confident to say that that is good enough to challenge for the title, right? I don't think you can argue that there are too many really weak individuals there. If you start chipping away at that and start putting our bench on, then I'm like, that's a pretty mediocre looking team. In the nicest way possible, we just have too many, okay squad players, not enough kind of the kind of richness that other teams have on the bench. If you look at City's bench, it's just, they can bring on,
ridiculous.
Haaland's out, Alvarez can come, it's amazing. And we just don't have that at the moment. So it is a kind of walking a bit of a tightrope at the moment. I fear the day Declan Rice, succumbs to injury, because, he will get injured at some point. It's to be expected. But what does that kind of leave for us? And I think the thing about the front three is that, Martinelli, Jesus, Saka, they are all more than good enough to be scoring regular goals and playing well together. But the truth of the matter is they're not at the moment, and they're all doing it at the same time. So it would be fine if
it's like the worst
quiet.
time.
But it's like they've all kind of sat down and been like, right, we're all going to have 3 or 4 games on bounce where we're pretty below average. But again, you can look at that in a different way. You can say, well, I'd rather Arsenal had a bit of a dip now when it doesn't matter, and they do it all at once and we get it out of our system and then we go again. What is so kind of disruptive as a fan is, I think, like last year we were going quite well, and then there was the kind of the Southampton game, the West Ham game where we were 2-0 up, the Liverpool game where we were 2-0 up, whereas that was at the right business end of the season where we needed them to be perfect and they weren't. Whereas fine, if you're going to have a little dip over Christmas, damage control and off we go again. But we're absolutely still, it's 5 points for me. That's, if it was 10, okay, fine. But 5 points, that's easily kind of you could chase that basically.
Yeah, I think, like you said, at the end of the season, that is where we usually really struggle. Like, I've seen it quite a few seasons in a row, the time we were trying to get top 4. And the fact we lost that to Spurs as well was just terrible. But
that was dreadful, wasn't it? That was a shocker. Yeah.
I just really thought, I think all we had to do was beat Newcastle. I think it might have been 1 or 2-0, or just win. And then the season after with the league, obviously we didn't expect us to challenge so soon because, our aim was to get top 4 last season. But I think because we were like 10 points ahead at Man City at one point, which was absolutely incredible. And then we've just started losing games, and it feels to me like we kind of run out of energy a bit. So if we do it now and we can pick ourselves up from this, I think I'd much rather us do this, because at the end of the season it's too late then to kind of change things, which we have seen in recent years. And it is quite painful the way it ends like that, because last season we were on top, for most of it, and then Man City overtook us right at the end. It's so painful when it happens like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the team will have learned a lot from that, in terms of, lots of our players have never been in a title race. Lots of our fans have never watched a title race, like myself included, to be honest. That I can't remember the last time I thought Arsenal are genuinely in with a chance of winning the title here. It was all very new. they obviously will have learned a lot from last season, and they will learn a lot from this little dip that they've had now about hopefully how they play themselves out of it, because we can't keep going with these results. We're in like, relegation form basically. And they will learn a lot from this, and you have to basically keep sort of improving and optimizing each season so that you get a little bit better at each of these situations. But again, lots of these players have never been in a title race before. Some of them have never played in the Champions League. We're expecting a lot from them to basically challenge one season and then follow it up with another challenge, all the time knowing that Liverpool are strengthening, Spurs are strengthening, Chelsea are probably doing a little bit better now than they were a couple of weeks ago. So it's all to play for. But as I said, I would rather, if you're going to have a little meltdown, please do it
have
now,
it now.
and not in May.
Yeah, it's not as stressful. I mean, like you said, you can recover from this, and when it's at the end, it's too late. And
it's game over, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why we've probably started a bit slower this season. I feel like we're saving our energy, like till the end possibly, because last season we started off really fast, and we obviously got to the end, and we did have a few injuries. I know Partey as well had, he's always been quite injury prone. I know Jesus as well. Eddie really had to step up last season, and to be fair, he did pretty good at doing that. But I think, it's always hard when it comes to the end, because you get so close, and it is really hard because the Premier League, it's really long process. Like with the Champions League, if you win it, not that it's easier, but it's not so long to go through, because with the league, it's it's so long. But I did want to get your thoughts on, like, from now to the rest of the season with the Champions League and with the league, where do you see us finishing?
I mean, I think the league, we are going to be maybe around third, fourth. I can't see us sort of slipping much further than that. I think the way Man City played yesterday at Newcastle was terrifying. I think, that says to me they're about to go on one of their runs where they just don't lose a game and don't draw a game for 10, 11 games. But they have the personnel to do that. I think it's hard to say. I think we're going to be close, but maybe not quite this season. So maybe third. Champions League's a bit of an unknown. I think, Arteta's sort of previous experience in Europe's not been great. But I think we've got a relatively good draw against Porto. It's not going to be easy. But ultimately, we should feel confident enough that we go through that round. I think with the way that teams play as well in Europe, the way that we want to play is perhaps a little bit more conducive to going up against those European teams who maybe slightly less defensive than what we see in the Premier League, less compact, which will give us a little bit more room. Obviously, hoping that we can, take our chances. But I think if we can get to the, quarters, semis, and give a really good account of ourselves, what I don't want to see is us, going out to a team in the quarters or semis who we should have beaten in the way that we have done in the Europa League. Like, I feel like we've gone out to Olympiacos on so many occasions in the Europa League by a goal in the last minute, and it's just been absolute, and we've played rubbish. What I want to see us is competing against the types of teams that are in the Champions League. I'm not expecting us to win it, I have to be honest. I think that's a huge ask. We haven't been in the Champions League for years to suddenly suggest that Arsenal are, capable of doing that. But we shouldn't be far off, put it that way. I don't think we should not be losing to Porto. I don't know who we could get in the round after that, but ultimately we shouldn't be getting played off the pitch like we used to. So, I've watched Arsenal get thrashed by Bayern Munich too many times to, recall. Progress would be re-establishing ourselves as a kind of European threat and playing well in Europe, and anything I think beyond the semi-final would be brilliant.
For me, I don't expect us to win it. I've not this season with the Champions League. I've said it's our first season back in it. I just don't want to get battered like we used to. I just want to be quite competitive with the teams we're playing against. And I know in the group it will get a lot tougher, and we have done really well. But I think for me, if we played Bayern Munich, say in the semi-final, and if we lost 2-1, but we gave it our all, it was competitive, I would say, I feel quite content with that. Obviously, to win it would be like a dream, but we've got other seasons to kind of give that a go. I feel like, yeah, I think the semi-final for me, I've said at the start of the season if we got to the quarter-final, because I did think we would be a lot closer in the league. But I
Yeah.
think with the league, I think if we came, third, obviously, and we were kind of, near points with Man City and Liverpool, probably won't be the worst case. I think that's probably what we can do right now, because I think you look at Man City, Newcastle were doing really well, and then De Bruyne comes on, scores, and they've got
Yeah.
him. They've got Haaland. They've just got so many players that we don't have, and like we do have a great squad, and we've got some incredible players, but we just don't really have the squad they have that Liverpool have, unfortunately. So I think for me, as long as we just kind of are competing, I think that's all we can ask right now. I know that winning trophies would be what we want, and I did want to do it this season, but I think, with, going out the FA Cup, maybe in hindsight it can be a good thing to focus on the league, but we do say that every season and then
Yeah.
we never win.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, is this a good thing? And then I just thought, no, it's not, because ultimately, a good run in the FA Cup. We love this competition. I love the FA
Yeah,
Cup. I love going to Wembley. Some of my favourite memories of Arsenal are at Wembley. And I just, it was gutting to go out the way we did as well, because we were better than Liverpool for the majority of that game, and we gave it
yeah.
up to them. Yeah.
Yeah, it is quite frustrating because, when we go out of a cup, I always say like it would be good to have a bit more of a rest, but then it never ends up like that, because then we start to fall and start to struggle at the end. But yeah, I think it's a long season, like you said, and I think we've really got to just hope and pray we do kind of start our form again at Crystal Palace. I think it's a good game to go into. I think they're doing good this season, but I think for us, it's good not to have like a big tough rival game. I think it's like an easier game going into it, and it's not too intense. But really hope we can win that. But Laura, it's been really lovely chatting with you today. This podcast has gone so quick, and I've really enjoyed chatting with you. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Sophie. I appreciate it, and thank you for always filling my Twitter feed with positivity. You are the absolute queen of keeping things positive about Arsenal, and I find Twitter to be, it can be a bit of a miserable place, but you are always positive. So thank you, and thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been really lovely to chat with you. I know that we've known each other for a little while, so it's been good to do this, and we should definitely do one at the end of the season when hopefully we'll have gone a bit better with
Won the
things.
Champions League.
Yeah, we're getting the Champions League final and we just won it. No, I hope one day that can be the case, but let's hope things do pick up a bit better, and I hope to those that are watching this back do really enjoy it, because I've really enjoyed chatting with you, Laura. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe button before you go, and I will see you guys very soon.